It's video time! Another video for the Family Tree series. You guys know I haven't uploaded in probably like a month and a half, and there's sort of an explanation for that. This is the best I've actually sounded since then. I've been dealing with some pretty serious seasonal allergies, and it was just not going to be a good combination to try to speak and make a video. They're already cringy enough, so I know my friends watch these, and they make fun of it, which is fine. I don't care, because it's just for me and my family stuff, and just for being able to share it with you guys. So a couple of things. You've obviously already clicked on the video, so you know what it's going to be about as far as the main title. Number two, it's always going to be too long because I just can't help that. I've given up at this point. Number three, I have some corrections I'm going to make, and number four probably is going to be, it's sort of going to be like a learning curve. You guys are going to learn with me about some things. So I tried to keep a list of things so that way I knew what I could try to keep myself on topic. I actually don't know what happened to that list, so oh well, we're just going to do it this way. Number one, yes, this video is going to be about DNA. Number two, I think I said that I wanted to make some corrections. So I've mentioned things in other videos. One of them in particular was the Mystery in Middlesboro video. And I mentioned that there's a lot of speculation about what kind of happened with my sort of the time frame that surrounded my great-grandparents on my dad's side. And I had been contacted by a lot of family members because whatever I must be doing in the ancestry tree must be showing people that there's some sort of like activity around the names that they're searching for, because I've come in contact with other family members as well, beyond the first set of family members that I found a couple of months ago now. And anyway, just wanted to make a correction, and it was just sort of as like a courtesy to them and anybody else who had watched the video, that we were sort of speculating. We don't know why there's this like super huge gap in history as to where and why and how like Connolly disappears. And basically all I wanted to say about that was make the correction that it wasn't actually he who disappeared. It was Miss Ollie who left with her children. They moved away and left him behind, and that for personal family reasons that we won't get into. But I just wanted to make that clear that it was the opposite. It was the other way around, which does help in a lot of my research anyway. So, with that being said, I don't remember what the third and fourth things I was going to talk about, except for talking about how we're going to sort of learn together on a curve with this DNA thing. So, it's a complicated topic, and I'm really excited to share it with everybody. As per usual, I sort of waited until I had the majority of the information that I knew was going to be helpful, and I wanted to really upload a video of my face with a terrible camera reacting to the DNA, the ethnicity results. Well, after watching a few reveal videos here on YouTube, based on my knowledge of previous research of how DNA works, it wasn't going to be a good idea. It was going to probably make some people upset. It was probably going to make people question things. And so basically, I'm going to try to not make this video super, super boring. And I wanted to go over a few quick things. I guess the first one is I'll explain that I ended up taking a test through Ancestry. It was super easy if you decide to do it. I guess during the time I was taking the test, there was a sale on the test. And right now, during this particular video that I'm making, Father's Day is coming up, and I've already noticed activity on some of the 4 or 5 major brand websites that they're already offering deals again for DNA tests. So I wasn't expecting them to go on sale again until probably around holiday time, like Black Friday. So if you can spare the money to snatch 1 or 2 of them up, I would definitely do it if you're interested in doing it. So I guess the second thing I want to talk about as far as DNA goes is there are some videos here on YouTube that do a lot better job of explaining than I do, and I would encourage you to either pause now and research the topics that I'm going to talk about, or do it after this video so you can understand better. If I had time, I'd like to put timestamps in these, but it'll just be a later on thing, just because I have so many obligations that I'm currently doing right now. So first of all, there is a guy, his name is Andy Lee, and he runs a YouTube channel called Family Tree Fanatics. Great job of explaining how DNA works and how it transfers and copies over, and why things are the way they are. Number 2 is a very good video to watch is going to be, actually it was made by BuzzFeed, and you guys might recognize BuzzFeed from some of the different stories they do, and people share them a lot on Facebook. So the way Ancestry works, or DNA works, is you don't get exact copies of all of the DNA of all of your ancestors. In fact, you only get a 50% copy from each parent. And that means you don't get a whole full set of your dad and a whole full set of genes from your mom. You only get a select 50% of their genes. So that basically means that you and your sibling could have similar DNA, but you're not going to carry all of the same characteristics because you're not carrying all 50% or all the same 50% of DNA from each parent. You have we'll kind of rewind a little bit to basic biology. You have 23 pairs of chromosomes that make you who you are. And I know that it took several years, and I want to say back in the somewhere between 2008 and 2012, they finally completed the Human Genome Project. One of my biology teachers was really interested in the topic, which is kind of great and kind of scary at the same time. Number 1, I guess, is it's great because now they're able to identify if there are particular genes that cause disease, and if you're a carrier of the disease, or if you're going to express the gene and you will inherit the disease. Number 2, I know people are talking about it might not be such a wise decision because just as everything revolves around money, insurance companies haven't quite got their hand into it yet. They've dabbled a little bit, but they feel like, oh, what if I'm predisposed to all of these diseases? So now an insurance company might not cover me for these diseases. So far, that hasn't happened yet. So, I mean, you can take it for what it's worth, and that sort of brings me to the next topic before I get too much more into the DNA portion. I've seen a lot of these reveal videos, and I'm sure later on at some point, because I'm not a big YouTuber or anything, but somebody's going to come at me. And I'm just saying right now, please don't at me, because I don't care. As far as people comment and say these videos are racist, that they promote racism, why do you care? It doesn't matter, that sort of thing. For me, these are fun. The DNA test was fun. It was fun to just confirm my family tree because I knew what made sense for me. It's also nice to be able to confirm, hey, if there's a gene that I'm predisposed to having, and I can start making lifestyle changes now when I'm younger before anything happens, if anything happens, maybe I can get, a jump up on it. As far as that goes, this is for me, and I don't make it for people on the internet to sort of appease them. This is for me, my family, and my friends, okay? That's all I really want to say about that, and it's not racist because it's just not, okay? We're not going to take it there. And for the second, I guess the next part is, we'll go into talking a little bit more about how DNA copies. So that BuzzFeed video, that's going to be if I can link these, I will. That's going to be the one that's going to be really important. Basically, I know there's a story on there. It's sort of like, well, My siblings took DNA tests and they ended up with 50-50 this. Well, how come I'm ending up with 100% this? Does this mean I have a different dad? Or am I adopted? Or something crazy like that. Which people, you will watch these reveal videos and people who do not understand will flip out. They'll call their parents, they'll call them crying, saying you lied to me and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes it is true, but most of the time it's not. You can actually take 2 DNA tests from separate companies and come up with different results. They can be slightly different or drastically different, and that is because not every DNA test is created equal. I went with Ancestry DNA because I felt like it was the most, I guess, useful in being able to download my raw DNA file and upload it to other websites to analyze. So we'll get into that a little bit more. And I sort of wanted to, I know a couple people were asking me to put up a picture of myself so other people can see what I look like compared to some of the people in the family tree, which I'm fine with doing. And I was like, when I took my Ancestry DNA test, I was like, I'm probably going to come back, let me see, I think I'm going to come back 80% some sort of European, and 10% maybe surrounding area, and I'd be lucky if there was any trace DNA of anything far-fetched, much farther out, like apart. I was interested to see if I had any sort of like Native American DNA also, because both sides of my family claim to have some, and I was like, oh, this would be a neat way to see if I actually ended up inheriting any of that. Even if it's in my in my family history, it doesn't mean that I'm just going to automatically get said strains of DNA. So I guess the next thing we'll talk about is the actual DNA test. And like I said, I wanted to do a reveal and have it be super exciting, but I didn't want to do that without explaining some stuff first, because I guess this should be educational in a way, but it's supposed to be fun, and I don't want to upset anybody, okay? So before I get into my DNA results on Ancestry, we're going to sort of talk about what it offers. I'm going to move to the Ancestry DNA, or like my profile screen, and we're going to go into DNA. You're going to see 2 things that I am already, anyway, so as soon as I click this. So DNA results summary, and you guys can explore these websites and things like that on your own. I have most of my stuff public, so you want to go through it, you can. I'm totally fine with that. So DNA story, matches, and circles, and I'll just give you the brief overview. DNA circles is basically you and a bunch of people have some kind of shared ancestor through DNA and also on your family tree, and it sort of just works to help you communicate with other people to narrow it down, because sometimes people get moved around. They might, instead of being an uncle, could maybe be a parent or a grandparent or something like that. DNA matches is really cool. I have over 1,000 people on here that I match some form of DNA with, and Ancestry will rank them from anywhere from like immediate family to 8th cousins or something like that. And you guys get to sort of thumb through each other's family tree and see where you might have come through as related, or if there's a surprise in there. Okay, DNA story. This is the one I wanted to do. Oh my gosh, total shocker, So I'll click here. Ethnicity estimate. Okay. No great big super surprises with this, which in part of me I was a little sort of like, oh, I wanted to have something a little extra in there, which I did end up with a lot of things extra. So basically the breakdown is like this. It's broken down by regions, and these big circles sort of identify a bunch of countries within the circle. So it's not like it doesn't like pinpoint to a town or anything unless you actually know that that's the town where they're from. So based on Ancestry's testing abilities, it would place me at 44% sort of from Great Britain. Like I said, that includes England, Scotland, and Wales. It would place me 28% Scandinavian, 14% Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And I'll try to make this big enough for everybody to sort of see. And then this one was surprising to me. Iberian Peninsula. I was like, what is the Iberian Peninsula? It is basically made up of Spain and Portugal, but I guess it could encompass bottom parts of France and Switzerland, Morocco, northern parts of Africa. And I was like, oh, well, that's sort of, exciting. I didn't expect that, and I thought, okay, I wonder where that comes from. I'd have to probably test a couple other family members so I can sort of get a feel for where that lineage comes from. Ancestry offered some trace DNA. Europe West, which would make up France, Germany, and some of this, like, Poland area, too. Which, if you've been paying attention, I should be, like, way more German, right? And that's where the problem with these DNA reveals come in. It's only giving estimates because it's such a broad region. And even if you're looking at some of the Great Britain circle, or you think about Scandinavia and migrations and things like that, basically, it's like it's just an estimate, and it's not saying that you're not German. It's just saying that based on what they have in their specific gene pool for people from Germany is this. Okay, makes sense to me because it is highly possible over thousands of years or hundreds of years, my family could have come from all over and actually lived in Germany, and they might have been German in the national sense. Maybe they weren't in the gene sense. So anyway, Europe South contains mostly Italy and Greece as far as this test is concerned, even though it does encompass a much broader region. I was surprised to find this too. I was like, no wonder I love garlic and pasta so much. And then Europe East pretty much encompasses a lot of parts of what would have been Russia. There's Poland, Hungary, the Ukraine, Bulgaria, Latvia, all of these different countries, okay, and it claims that it might be trace DNA. And then a fun thing here is it has the settlers of the Appalachia, or I guess it's Appalachia, and people are probably yelling, shaking their fist at the screen, or like, pronounce it correctly. I'm sorry, I'm just from Ohio, I don't know. Basically, it pertains to southwestern West Virginia settlers. And if you look at this circle, it encompasses bottom parts of Ohio, parts of West Virginia, North Carolina. It also covers Tennessee and parts of Kentucky. So basically anywhere there was coal mining happening. I mean, we've sort of already covered that. We know that. I know that's true. And basically there are certain pools of people that they've tested here that test back with DNA-based overseas in Europe and things like that. So, and it says that for this particular region, that over 1,000 DNA matches with me, and over 297,016 other Ancestry DNA members are all genetically linked to this region through shared ancestry. How flippin' crazy is that? So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I thought it was going to be more interactive, but it's not. But I did enjoy the results. So 1700s, this is nice because it sort of breaks it down. People that are in the tree and where they were born or where they died should pop up. Okay, and they do. And so these little orange circles, and this might freeze up. Sometimes it does, and it's just my computer. These little orange circles represent pools of people who've been tested, who have been shown to have migrated to the Smoky Mountains, for coal mining, okay? That's a lot of, and it talks, and the nice thing is when it talks about migration and where these people lived, it tells what's happening at that time, be it wars or poor economical statuses and things like that. So I know this branch of lines comes from my maternal side. This branch of lines comes from my dad's side. And I guess, if I can zoom in here. See, we're in Germany. Okay. And this is, I know, I'm not going to click on it because it froze last time I clicked on it, but it is Anna Barbara Albright. She and Johann are the ones that got on the boat with the children and actually went up and migrated over. So they would have traveled up the Rhine River, and it has her located in, oh my gosh, the pronunciation of these is going to be terrible, Darmstadt, and that is where, sort of near where we had talked about, because this is like right below Frankfurt, okay, and I knew that we lived in this region, and it's sort of really neat to see how other family members that I actually knew their towns are listed here in the time frame. So I'm going to zoom out. The lines kind of get hard to follow a little bit, but basically when I talked about everybody landing in Pennsylvania or migrating towards Pennsylvania after they landed, yeah, that makes sense. I have lines that go to some of the circles. So whatever job offerings were for people when they got off the boat obviously makes sense here. And here we have some, like, and I do know that on my dad's side, a lot of them moved down through North Carolina after a couple years and ended up in a lot of this area too. So, or I guess rather it's this area. So 1750s, same idea. And that also has to do with still having family who, remember when we talked about they bought citizenship to be in the UK? That could also be pertaining to that too. Because after the 1750s, I must have had some other family come over as far as who married into the Faust family beyond who was already here, who moved here in 1733. So exciting, right? And it does go on and list relatives and things like that. 1800s, nobody had moved anymore from what we know from overseas. They were already here. 1850, same deal. 1900s, there's my great-grandmother Ella. She was born in North Carolina, so makes sense because I know where she was born and things like that. And then 1925, it kind of stops. And I'm like, well, alright, so that just basically tells me, it confirms what I know about my DNA test. Or not my DNA test, but my Ancestry family tree. And that's pretty awesome to know, because you guys know that I've added over like 1,000 people on it, and can you imagine doing all that work and you're like, oh no, I am completely wrong. So I downloaded my Ancestry DNA results in a zip file. The number one rule, I guess, is do not unzip the zip file. Okay, so there are hundreds of other websites that will analyze your DNA. Some are free, some cost money. It's my DNA to do whatever I want with, and I was fine with some of it going towards being used for like sample purposes for college campuses and things like that. If they want to say, okay, maybe this particular set of people from this region are more apt to like spicy food or something like that. So I opted in for that kind of stuff. And when I talked about the major websites, that's, Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, MyHeritage, and Family Tree DNA, I was able to upload to Heritage. I cannot upload to 23andMe from what I know, and then Family Tree DNA I tried, but there's something going on with Ancestry's updated like filing system, and it's like sort of coding out right now. It's like there's errors, so they'll probably fix it soon, and eventually I'll get it up there, because it would be nice to take my DNA and spread it out to where people can find it. Like, that's the whole purpose of me taking this test. I mean, if you want to take a test and keep all your information private, to me it makes really no sense other than just giving you ethnicity estimates, but I would think you would want to share it. So Heritage DNA, And by the way, it looks like a lot of the websites are running sales right now. I didn't think they'd run sales again until after Black Friday, but I guess they are. Let's see where this takes us here. I think I have to, there's like a roundabout way of getting to it. Oh, I think I actually had to click on the ethnicity estimate. Oh, there it is. Okay, so it was even more sort of like generic. It only like identified 3 things. And even if I click on view full estimate, okay, it has me about 75% North and West Europe between English, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh. Makes sense. And another about 1/4% being East Europe or East European. Okay, makes sense. A lot less broad than the Ancestry DNA test, and that is just based on the pool of people that they have to test, okay? It's, like I said, it's not an exact science, even though it sort of is an exact science in a way. So anyway, that was my Heritage DNA. And then I wanted to talk about GEDmatch. GEDmatch is amazing. Tools for DNA and genealogy research. And to quote Andy Lee from Family Tree Fanatics, it's a bare bones website. If you think back to the Angel Fire days, the Geosites days, there's not a whole lot of bells and whistles attached with this, okay? There's not a whole lot of graphics or anything like that. It's basic info, or sort of like basic things for your needs, basically, so you're not getting a bunch of stuff in your way. And it's basically made for people who love doing this, and not to stereotype anyone, but my thought of that is people who sit in a lab all day and just love this stuff, okay? They're just testing DNA all day long. And people have made like these different calculators to sort of determine your DNA. And from what I understood for my research purposes was that once you upload into GEDmatch, it's sort of like the I want to say it's like the top website where people upload their raw DNA files. And let me see if I'm still logged in, because sometimes it kicks me off because okay, give me a second here to get where I am going. And let's see. I put the graphic up so you can have something cool to look at while I sort of rummage through this website that looks like just a bunch of HTML things. Let's see. Okay. Wasn't super uber prepared for some of this. Anyway, so one thing it does, which I thought was really cool, and some of you are probably going, why are there so many tabs? I tried to put them up there so I had access to them when I was explaining some of this. So, predict eye color. And I'm fine with my kit result up here. The A just indicates that I took it through Ancestry. This is a project. This is where people are trying to come together to understand how eye color is expressed, because it's not just one gene that expresses your eye color. So DNA-wise, they're made up of proteins. That's what this refers to. These are the positions on the genome that give color, and it tells the function of each based on what they've studied. So would indicate a brown. This would indicate that there's a weak amber gradient. This says that there's a starburst effect in the eye, blah blah blah. So it says this is my eye. Okay, I think it definitely got most of the pattern right. I do have some of this color right around the pupil, and I do have the gray ring around the iris. But this is much more green. The yellow is in there. It's just there's a lot more green. So I'll pull up that picture of me again, and it's not, you can't really see it, I mean, in this photo, but it does sort of I guess it is kind of close. Not really, but kind of. Like, they got everything probably except for the color correct. And the more information we submit, the more accurate this gets, which is really kind of cool. So I'll move back to the screen here. So that was eye color. And we get a 1-to-1 compare, an X-to-1 compare, or 1-to-many matches compare. And let me tell you, when you use this website, really go out and try to look on, Google it, join pages on Facebook, because even though they tell you, they give, a DNA for Dummies, or how to use it for new users, it's not very comprehensive, and it's not very, what I would call like user-friendly. And that's not just my opinion, that's coming from other people who have been on this. So some people who know and have dabbled a lot more in this than we have been nice enough to sort of put some blog information out there too. So 1-to-many matches, I guess we can just sort of work from top to bottom. This is where it gets fun. So there are different ways you can test for DNA. I will not go into them. It's another thing you can research. You can test your paternal DNA, only your maternal DNA, or your autosomal DNA, and that will test both. Okay, that is one of the other reasons why I picked Ancestry, because they are using autosomal testing now. And I thought, oh, okay, well, if I'll just get this one. cm is a unit of measurement, and it is not referring to centimeters. It is referring to something called centimorgans. That has to do with the measurement of and positions in DNA. Something else you can read about later, because we'll spend too much time here talking about it, and I want to get to these fun results. So if it has a green background, it means that person has uploaded their results within the last 30 days. Okay, and it will, right now it's set up to show me who has the most same DNA as me, and all these people have elected to have this information public. So this is not a bunch of private information. It's meant to be up there for people to find. Okay, so that's just another thing that I'm sure people will try to at me for, and no, it's already up there. Anybody can access this. Okay, so there's something called haplogroups. Whoops. Yeah, they're called haplogroups, maternal and paternal haplogroups, and basically they refer to pools of people, and some of them are more rare than others, and they're inherited. They basically don't change. So for me, I probably have this H1. I don't know. I haven't even gotten that far to sort of look it up. My Y, I don't know, and it is helpful to find that out, because it can talk about predisposing things to like diseases, or if you're related to famous people. Okay, isn't that really important? So this refers to generations. Okay, and there's a deciphering tool that will tell you. I know 1.5 generations away means that either somebody is a half-sibling or an aunt or uncle. This person just happens to be my aunt, so I already know that. I'm like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And then it was really neat to put her DNA up against mine. I have 21.8% identical DNA to her. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. So that's, inherited DNA from grandparents for me and things like that. So that was really cool to see. And then we can kind of see where, alright, she has this DNA. Did I get this DNA from her, or did I get it from somewhere else? And then again, it can skip generations. Just because she doesn't express things doesn't mean that she or my mom wouldn't have passed things on. So the generations get farther down as it goes. And I would love to. I'm probably going to end up contacting all of these people and be like, cousins, hooray! So that's pretty cool too. There's just a whole mess of people on here, okay? And for some of you might even have more than that. So the 1-to-1 comparison basically was what I was talking about when I compared my DNA to her. And this stuff is public anyway, so we're going to do graphics and positions. And I don't really know how to fool around with some of those other boxes. So basically, full match, half match. There's a key legend up here. And I guess I'll zoom in a little bit. You can't see all of it because, and I believe I heard once, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, someone, that if you took a strand of DNA, your whole entire strand of DNA that makes up you, it's your blueprint for all of your cells and everything in your body and your traits, and you unstrung it or sort of like just pulled it out in one long string, I think it's like 2 miles long or something like that. So either way, understand that these are kind of shrunk down, okay? And the blue line represents identical DNA that I would have with my aunt, or half matches, I guess. Yellow is half match, green is full match, and blue is sort of like, this is the chunk that you guys sort of are most matching. Red means no match at all, okay? And I thought it was kind of interesting because I know that gene 7 or chromosome 7 is responsible for, I think, cystic fibrosis is carried in this gene. And I don't believe I have any of that running in that side of my family. And I was just like, oh, that's just something else to, you know, consider. And on chromosome 21, and almost all of chromosome 22 were like either fully matched or half matched. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And it says estimated number of generations is 1.6, which really it rounded it down to 1.5. So that was cool. Okay. The 2 other things I want to show in here. Oh, hold on. We'll do this one. And this isn't like, it says, are your parents related? And I wanted to sort of go over this, and actually I didn't pull it up, but yeah. I knew I wanted to talk about this. Here we go with the little edumacation, right? So Punnett square. You may have done this in high school biology, maybe not, okay? Genes are inherited a specific way, and if I can sort of teach that to you, I will. Let's see. So, this is why the are your parents related is so important. It's not like a wild stab at like, I know people like to make jokes about it, but the thing is it happened to everyone. There are people who married who were cousins to each other, or however, still related in the same bloodline, married to one another. And it happens to everybody. It happened thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, you know, could have happened 50 years ago. It's just a thing that happens. And it even happened before it was like a social issue. And sometimes people don't know that they're related. I mean, these DNA tests, we've seen reveals where husbands and wives have taken DNA tests, and they might have thought they've come from other ends of the planet, and they end up being more closely related than they thought, or, you know, were actually related when they thought they weren't related. And the reason why that's important is because if you have intermarrying or whatever in your bloodline, okay, that basically means that you're doubling the chance of the offspring from that point on to inherit certain genetic factors. And the most concern surrounds that with diseases, okay? So there are dominant traits and recessive traits, and this is going to be a fly-by-night explanation of this. So basically, think of this chart as, this is a father on this axis and a mom on this axis. Both of them have brown eyes. When it comes to genetics, brown pretty much wins out over blonde and red or blue and green. It's just the way it is, because it's a dominant feature. So what happens is okay, mom and dad both express brown eyes because they have a dominant brown eye gene, but they both are carriers of the recessive gene for blue eyes, which is true. Blue is a recessive eye gene. Okay, and a Punnett square shows the probability of what offspring will have. what traits. So I guess you can kind of think of this like, let's say they had a set of quadruplets at the same time. First one would have both dominant sets of brown. They all have brown eyes. Same with offspring 2 and 3. They would have, quad 2 and 3, they would have dominant brown eyes, but they would be carriers to be able to pass on blue eyes. So that's why you go sometimes, well, both my parents have brown eyes. How did I end up with blue? Oh my gosh, my dad's not my dad. No. You know that meme, that's not how this works, that's not how any of this works? That is not how this works! Okay, the fourth quad would end up having inherited both recessive genes for blue eyes. Actually, blonde is a recessive gene as well. And red hair and blue eyes are also a pretty rare combination. And I do believe that they're both quote-unquote mutations in genes at one point in time. And then, like, all of those people are somehow related to, like, a similar ancestor because of this gene mutation. Okay, so think of it this way. If the mom and dad on the y and x axes were related, meaning, let's say they're cousins, okay, and they both are carriers for, let's call this recessive gene cystic fibrosis, okay, their offspring could potentially have a 75% chance of passing that on, because they've doubled the chance of expression of the gene, okay? And sometimes people will be, they're already aware of diseases that run in their family, and they'll get genetic testing before they decide to have children because they want to determine what's the probability or the likelihood of passing this on to their children, okay? And that's why this whole are my parents related thing important, okay? That's just where I'm going to leave it at, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. So based on my genes and what it knows to be inherited from parents, and this really isn't even totally true unless I have both parents test. So based on all this, you see all this red, it says no indications that your parents are related, or at least maybe not closely related, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. This is still a learning curve for me. And then we're going to talk about a couple of things too. Okay, so the last two things I want to show are something called admixture and archaic DNA matches. So I'm going to get ready to talk about a couple of things. Remember when I was talking about how you can inherit diseases and things? There are a couple of websites. Xcode is one, and also the Prometheus website is also one. Okay, there are people out there and programs out there, labs out there who will allow you to upload your raw DNA from some of these major brand test websites. And they basically act as a genetic counselor. You can pay an extra fee to have them specifically test for certain things, okay? So I'm just going to open up I just want to mention Xcode is pretty great. It has a $10, I think it starts at $10 or something like that. And then these are other ones you can check out later on. There's Prometheus, I guess it's Prometheus, Genetic Genie, DNA Land, GEDmatch. I'm already using a couple of these free ones, and this one is what I wanted to talk about that is possibly, carrier status. BRCA1 and BRCA2. That is a specific type of breast cancer gene, and a lot of times it's linked to a specific pool of Jewish heritage, and it's a really aggressive form of breast cancer from what I understand, and if you sort of pop up having this sort of heritage, it's probably worth getting tested. At some point I probably need to get genetic testing done or genetic counseling done, because I am aware of certain diseases that have been passed on and that I apparently show signs of things, and I just wanted to clear my mind or start taking action when as soon as possible. It is also great for people who want to know, and 23andMe is also great for this too. They have their own package deal, and I think it's a little bit more expensive than their regular DNA. It'll actually tell you what type of muscle fibers you have if you're predisposed to be more athletic, if you're going to have a faster or slower metabolism, if your body won't process saturated fat as well, and maybe you need a more customized diet plan. They actually use a lot of this for athletes, people who train for, big national sports teams or the Olympics. And it talks about there's even gene allergies. There's, oh my gosh, there's all kinds of stuff you can use this for. If you have the money to do it, do it. I guess if you want to find out about yourself, there's a couple I'd like to find out about. Specifically this one. This would be one that I would want to definitely know about because it's an offered test. And I would also probably want to know about Gene Health also. Not so much into the diet thing, I guess. I mean, it might be helpful, but it's just not something that wouldn't be super important to me at this point in time. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. And I'm actually waiting on DNA Land right now. I uploaded it a couple hours ago. It's still processing. So with that being said, I wanted to go into talking about admixture and archaic DNA. I sort of mentioned at the beginning of this video, I wanted things to sort of be I guess PC, and not for people to take them and run off with like crazy assumptions, okay? My documentation of this family tree series is meant to be scientific. I cannot help it if you have different views, or you might have religious views that don't match up with other people who are mentioned in here, or match up with myself. And I don't want to dwell on that because I'm going to start talking about things and people can get upset, and I don't want them to be upset, and you can take it for what it's worth, and you can take the time to sit down and listen to what I'm going to talk about, and then you can make your own assumptions from that. But we're just going to go on science-based factual evidence that we know about that exists right now, okay? And that's all I'm going to say about it, and I'm not going to try to step, like on thin ice, trying to talk through this whole thing and like making it difficult for me to speak about, as far as like trying not to offend anyone. And now on the DNA end of it, this is an assumption. This is DNA. This is actually real. It's mine. And if you take a DNA test, it could be yours too. So, okay, heritage. This is going to get really fun because it has not the same results as Ancestry. I shouldn't say that. It has additional results that Ancestry didn't pick up, and that is what GEDmatch is known for, because it has such a broad database. Actually, the FBI uses GEDmatch because it's a free website, and it's way more helpful for DNA evidence than some other labs that they send it through for specifically for like crimes and things, okay? This is a really accurate tool. If it shows up, you have it, okay? Or you have that DNA in you. So, first thing I want to talk about is something called Pangea. If you didn't learn about it in school, you're going to learn today. It was basically a supercontinent that was comprised of all of the continents that we have right now. And between the movement of tectonic plates, basically the crust of the earth floats around on molten metal, magma, lava, all that good stuff, okay? And over the course of thousands of years, we know that these land masses ended up moving apart and separating into the shapes that we have for countries today. Okay, and there's a lot of evidence based on archaeological digs and finds and things that probably, for what we know today, and this can change in the future, and maybe I'll make an updated video if it does, we know that for whatever reason there's a lot of evidence that life, we're humans, the earliest known start point is somewhere around the Middle East and Africa, okay? And take those words for what it's worth. If you go, well, this isn't Middle East, and this isn't Africa, and this is actually part of Asia or whatever, we can look at that later, and I'm just going to leave that so that the words are just descriptive and you have a general sense of what I'm talking about, okay? So there's that. And then I knew we talked about the Punnett squares, and then that's what I was going to say. I pulled this up because a lot of people don't remember that Russia, and it might just be American people too, because I feel like that's, we just sort of think about us and nothing else. As far as maps go, Russia is actually considered Asia as well, and so is India. It's considered Asia. And in this particular map, this is considered the Middle East. This is considered Europe, and this is like all Egyptian. The Nile River and all that stuff runs through this area. Okay, and I pulled up a map of countries, and this is going to change based on the time frame you're looking at, because this is a world map in the 1700s. Okay, this was all ruled by Russia, and I don't know if I can. Yeah. Oops, I can't. Ah! Alright. Holy Roman Empire and small states. France. Okay, that's what we were talking about in the previous video, okay? This was all ruled by Sweden. Sweden. All of this was the Ottoman Empire, okay? Arabic, Mongol Empire, and then I think the King Dynasty is over here. Yeah. So there are other things happening, okay? Spain is even taking land down here in southern North America and parts of South America, and I just wanted to just sort of have people just keep that in the back of your mind when I go to talk about this stuff, okay? Let's get to the fun stuff. Admixture heritage. Whoops, I'm actually going to open it in a new tab because I'm going to come back to it a gajillion times. This is really fun. I'm still learning how to use this, so bear with me. Okay, you can select a project. There are, like 7 or 8 different projects you can select from. And you can paint the difference between 1 or 2 DNA kits, and either all chromosomes, 1 chromosome, reduce size of each chromosome you want to look at, or you can view the full chromosome if you're looking for a specific, I don't know, characteristic or disease. Admixture proportions by chromosome. That's really cool to look at too. It basically shows you what portion of your chromosome, maybe it's the position for eye color. Well, where does my eye color come from? Maybe it'll say it comes from Ireland, okay, and I can look that up by my admixture proportions by chromosome and go, oh look, that's the country where my eye color is being expressed from based on the position and coding. Are you bored to death yet? Okay, first one I want to do is the MLDP project, and you'll see things here where it'll talk about K and then a number. K and a number is in reference to, I believe, thousands of populations, and one of them that I know a lot of people tend to click on is this 23,000 and then the B. So we'll click here. It's going to analyze, and it only takes a couple of seconds. Pie chart time. And these numbers will adjust in each different pie chart, okay? Alright, this is pretty cool. It breaks me down like this. About 40, and I'm just going to round here, 40% in the green is European hunter-gatherer, okay? That makes sense. The big lavender purple color is early European farmers. Makes sense. The next biggest portion is sort of the aqua blue color, and it says Caucasian. Now go figure, right? Caucasian is about 21%, okay? Brown is South Central Asia. That was surprising, okay? Orange is ancestral Altic or Altiec, and that also refers to parts of Asia as well. And then red is North African. Okay, so where's my map here? North African is probably this region. What is this? What did it say? South Central Asian is somewhere in here. So probably maybe China or one of these countries, okay? And I'm like, oh, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And then in the pie chart, it doesn't even show because I guess it just doesn't break it down in the pie chart. There is 0.2% East African. There is also Amerindian, which is American, what would be Native American, okay? There's also Arctic DNA in this particular pie chart. So I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And you kind of have to play around with these to understand all of what makes you up, because for what it's worth, it doesn't show you every thing all at once. You kind of have to just play around with it. So the MDLP project is pretty cool. Eurogenes. This is going to be most effective for people who have a lot of European DNA. That would be me. And like I said, I don't remember what some of these are. That J test, that's the one. We'll do this one just because I brought it up about that breast cancer gene linked to a specific pool of Jewish people that is really small. You almost think of them like Amish in a sense that they don't communicate really with people outside of their Orthodox religion. So here we come up with some different results. And a lot of these act as proxies for the other sometimes. So based on this J test, we'll start with the yellow. Atlantic DNA, makes sense, about 30%. Brown, North Central Europe, yep, makes sense, and about almost another 30%. Orange, East European, yep. Red is South Baltic, so you kind of have to know your geography, and so I'm going to try to give you a time to okay, I'll mention one, you could pause, Google, okay, that's where that's from. Oh, I don't understand what that is, pause, because I have to do that too, but I'm not going to do it on here. We already know the videos will be long enough. The next portion is West Asian, okay. West Asia is going to refer to, I think I was most interested in, I was like, what? Asian? What? That's awesome. So West Asian, so north, east, west, south, and west. So West Asia is probably going to be anywhere in reference to, it literally could be anything between Russia, China, and this whole section here, okay? It could be any of that. And it does get a little bit more specific as time goes on. The next is green, that's East Mediterranean. You can Google that. And we'll skip over this one. This sort of almost olivey brown green, I might have already said is west. Oh no, it's West Mediterranean. Okay, this nice sort of light green-ish color is what it thinks that potentially I could have somewhere around 3.25% Ashkenazi Jewish. Okay, and I can't pronounce it. And that's based on DNA markers, okay? Does it say I have the BRCA1 or 2? No, this doesn't. It's not meant to be a definitive medical test. It just means that based on my DNA that I carry, there is a 3% potential chance that I could carry this particular type of heritage. And it's not might, I do, okay? I do carry it. So, for instance, the BRCA1 and 2 test would be something that I would want to look into. I mean, if I know it, and I know that it's there as far as I have some sort of Jewish heritage background for this particular pool of people, I might as well get it tested, okay? I might as well, why take things like that to chance? Okay, so we'll back off some of the seriousness there. Okay, here comes some more fun ones. So Eurogenes, we'll go back to that one because I already did the J test with that. And K13 or K36, I guess. We'll break it down a little more. I can show you hunter-gatherer versus farmer. This is ancient northeastern, I believe. And then this is, I don't know what this one is. I've clicked them all so many times I don't remember. There's some I want to show you that I probably won't be able to because I can't get back to them. And you can write these down, I mean, if you want to. for some of you are like, oh, you know, I know some family members are like, oh, that's crazy. Where does that come from? And see, I've ran my aunt's numbers up against these two, and I'm like, ooh, they're different. I might not have gotten that from her side, because I don't have anybody right now that I know of that has been tested on my paternal side. If you've taken a GEDmatch, or you've uploaded a GEDmatch or something like that, please let me know. Or you've taken a DNA test elsewhere, please upload it to GEDmatch and let me know, so that way I can sort of compare our results and see, maybe we're not as German, you know. We're definitely not as German as I thought I was. I mean, I still have a whole lot. Okay, this is matching me up with, I think there's 36 different things in here, probably. Some of them will give explanations. Eurogenes, woohoo! So, based on this Eurogenes, 0.919% American Indian, about 3% Basque, don't know what that is, I'd have to Google it. About 5% Central European, almost 6% East Balkan, almost 7.5% East Central European, getting really specific now, almost 6% Eastern European, and then that Fennoscandian is in relation to Finland and Scandinavia. And based on this pie chart, it breaks the genes down for Eurogenes in the K36 populations as almost 8%, I guess. French, and that can also be considered part of German also, just because of time frames and things like that. 11.6. Iberian DNA, that's sort of that Spain and Portugal we talked about. Remember it said I was only like, I don't know, like 4%? Well, this one is basing me saying that I would have somewhere around almost 15.5%. Okay, and I find that these GEDmatches are way more accurate, especially when you base the calculators up against one another. This is going to be the most accurate information. North African, 0.35, North Atlantic, 17.25, Northern Sea, about 17%. That South Central Asian pops up as 0.05%. That's very small. And when we were talking about South Central Asia, that could be anywhere from China, it might even be India, I don't know. But that's why when I sort of like look through some of this stuff, it sort of will give me a better idea. So then the DODCAD, somebody had me do this too with World 9. I'm not going to do that one because I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't significant. It just basically showed a bunch of European. Well, I know that. I want to know more about the stuff I didn't know. I don't know. I hope you guys find this exciting because I'm finding it exciting. Okay, here's a couple of new terms. Gedrosia or Gedrosa is specifically in reference to what is now considered most of the Middle East and maybe parts of Northern Africa. Okay, and that comes down to almost 9%. In this particular calculator, you can find more about them. Okay, we'll see how Siberian goes way down. That's because it's sort of acting as, it's really hard to explain. Okay, you kind of have to just take your averages basically with this one. So, Northwest Africa, about 0.5%, Atlantic Mediterranean, Northern European, roughly 40% each. Southwest Asian, again, that's probably somewhere close to China or India. And right here it shows no East Asian, although once I get into a different calculator, surprisingly it does show a small bit of DNA from Japan. I was stoked when I saw that. I was like, what? Amazing. The Caucasus is also in reference to some parts of the Middle East, what is now known as the Middle East. Sub-Saharan, which is African, 0.1. Okay. Let's get into, I think it's Ethiohelix. If I feel like I have time, I'll go back to the Harappa world. I don't remember what that one is. Ethiohelix is supposed to be most effective for people who have what they believe to be African American DNA and one of these other ones. So if it were to only look at my African DNA, this is what it would break me down into, in a broad, very broad sense. East and North Africa, okay? So it's not looking at all of my DNA, it's only looking at these regions and breaking me down by these regions based on what my DNA is. It's kind of confusing, I know. And it's like, well, that makes no sense. It does, and I don't have a better way to explain it. Somebody else would be able to explain it better. French acts as a proxy for basically all of Europe. There's Palestinian also, which that's sort of like a lot of the, oops, I didn't put my kit number in. Part of the Middle East. I got too excited. We're gonna wait. I should have put the Jeopardy thing up there, you know what I mean? Okay, so again, some words that don't really ring a bell with me, I have to Google them. So orange is East Africa. The olive green color is Khoisan. Blue is Palestinian. And that looks like almost not based on like Middle Eastern DNA, quote unquote. Middle Eastern, African, and just sort of like that part of the hemisphere over there. Almost the whopping 90% of it refers to Palestinian DNA, and Omotic is something else entirely. I can't remember what it is, and I think it's something. It's either Egyptian or somewhere between like southern Asian islands. So we'll come back, and one more Ethiohelix, I think. So this one is kind of cool, and it does say that it acts, a lot of the Asian DNA will act as some Japanese too, but I also went down and broke it down through genome, and there is Japanese on the genome, individually speaking, not as a proxy for, basically it's not summarizing all of Asian DNA as Japan. Okay, there is some in there. So based on, if I compared my African DNA to my Japanese DNA, I would have about 70% North Africa. I would have almost 1.5% of a particular type of pygmy, which is, I didn't expect that. 0.5% West Africa, and 1.5% East Africa, and then another of like roughly 7% of that Omotic, and almost 0.25% of that DNA between African and Asian DNA would be Japanese. Okay, so I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And I'll have to go back and sort of show you. Another one is, I think we talked about that Jedrosa DNA. Same deal, kind of breaks me down by the Middle East. I'm gonna go with K12 populations and just see what it gives me. I don't remember all the stuff I looked at. I also want to open up one of the admixture for the genes to just sort of show you. And Andy Lee from Family Tree Fanatics also does a really cool thing where he matches up his DNA with his own DNA, because shouldn't your DNA be identical to yourself? Well, that's how he sort of paints the differences between, he'll put up an Ancestry DNA and maybe a 23andMe DNA and match them up on GEDmatch, and you'll see these black portions where it says not an exact match, when it really should be. So that's why GEDmatch is going to be the most accurate information. Rather than wasting, kind of quote-unquote wasting your money and taking multiple tests. I mean, you can, if you have the income to dispose of, I suppose. So this will talk about South Indian allele frequencies. Okay, so this is more of the Middle Eastern type DNA, kind of. So, South Indian DNA, meaning probably from Indonesia, 1.14%. About 40% early European farmer, blah, know that. Southwest Asian, know that. West Siberian, Southeast Asian, which is, remember when I said there's a lot of that sort of small percentage of stuff. There's in this map is 0.1%, like a tenth of a percent. Beloki, I don't remember what that was. And a specific type of herder is almost 40%, and then that Caucasus is 11, and Eastern Siberian breaks down as 0.08. Okay, so I was like, oh, that's super cool, super duper cool. Let me see if I can do chromosome painting with I don't remember what this one is. If it's not the one I want, then we'll go back. Okay. African only, ancient, modern, global. I'll do ancient. We'll just see. Because there's one other thing I want to get to before. Yeah. So this is that bichromosome thing I was talking about, and they are huge. Okay. And each color represents a different type of thing. And some of the colors are very hard to see. So, like, here's that lavender color I think is supposed to be East Asian, which is probably when I went and did my Japanese admixture, okay? And you can actually do these percentages by chromosome also. You don't have to do just the pie chart, or you don't have to do the whole genome map all at the same time. You can do it chromosome by chromosome also. So basically the keys are red is sub-Saharan, orange is Amerindian, which actually when I went and did the correct thing to compare that to like my European DNA, it was like, ooh, I had like a 20% of it is, and I was like, wow. So, you know, really I'd have to like sit down and write these down. And it's just a really cool way to actually look at your DNA. So you are more than what you think you are. And you're more than whatever Ancestry or any of the other tests tell you. Upload it to GEDmatch, okay? See, this particular one is being used in Harvard right now. Like, these are pretty awesome, okay? And one thing that I wanted to get to was this one. Oh, where'd it go? Archaic DNA matches. Oh, I wish I could do a whole video on this. I might. If you guys want it, I will. Let me know. Okay. We'll do my DNA kit. Okay, so these are archaic DNA matches. You know when they do archaeological dig sites and, oh, we discovered a new mummy, or we discovered a frozen mummy that we didn't know was here. Okay. These are, it goes up to 22 chromosomes. Leaves the other one off. And, or I should say pairs of chromosomes, okay? Pairs of chromosomes. I'm going to touch on a couple of them that are important. Not that they all aren't important, but what are most, the darker the line is filled in with orange, the more I have, okay? So, this Siberian DNA, which is almost like, sort of like an ancient Asian DNA, roughly about 50,000 years old. That's the first line up here, and I should try to like move in closer. Maybe you'll be able to see better because I know the resolution isn't the same when I record these. So the second line is about 30,000 years old, and different type of like almost like maybe Neanderthalic type DNA in Siberia as well, 30,000 years old. Paleo Eskimo Greenland within the last 4,000 years. I have a little dash of that. And then we talk about Malta, Siberia. Here's that Labrania, Spain. That's around 7,000 years ago. So remember when like the Iberian Peninsula pops up and a couple of other things? Yeah, that's what this DNA is talking about. This one, it is almost solid orange, and it was within the last 7,000 years, and it says LBK Stuttgart. What the hey is that? Okay, remember when I talked about Anna Barbara Albright, and she's from where like the Budingen dungeon was, all of that sort of German. This line is strictly from that region of Germany, and I actually believe, and I'll just appease myself right now. Yeah, I already searched it at some point. Well, let me get rid of this. Stuttgart is a place right now is the capital of Southwest Germany's Baden-Württemberg state. Mercedes-Benz and Porsche have headquarters and museums here. Okay, and it has one of the largest botanical gardens and zoos in Europe, and it is just northeast of the Ronstein Castle. Okay, so Stuttgart, and when we were talking about the German ancestry, that it's on par. Okay, so that's why I said take your ancestry DNA results with a grain of salt, because obviously I have way more German DNA than it picked up on. Okay, and that's why GEDmatch wins overall. Awesome. There's Swedish DNA. This is Luxembourg, so Netherlands. This Clovis, Montana is 12,500-year-old DNA, and I'm just going to stop on that one real quick before I move on. That Clovis, Montana DNA is specific to, I believe it was a skeleton found out in Montana, and it is basically, if I believe it's 80% of Native Americans living today have this particular type of DNA within them. It's basically an ancient Native American Indian type of DNA. I have quite a bit of that, okay? And I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense, because I know between both sides of my family, I've heard, I think a lot of people have heard Cherokee, but I've heard Cherokee, Crow, Blackfoot. There's a couple other ones that I've heard of too. And when I went searching for these, I was like, these make sense. So some UK and Sweden. Hungary is broken down into this. I know this is Bronze Age and this is Iron Age, and things like that based on Hungarian. And I know there's a lot of Viking DNA on my mom's side. And here's Bronze Age Hungary within the last 3,200 years. So much. This is 45,000-year-old Siberian DNA. What? Different parts of Russia. And this is another type of Hungarian DNA. Sweden is also, so you know, like I'm represent a lot of these. I do have a considerable amount of different types of Russian, Sweden DNAs. Okay, here's another Russian DNA, and they all have their own explanation as to where they were found, and I have a key on it, and I can talk about it in a different video. More Russian DNA. This one is really, really cool. This, I'm gonna Google it if I can. Okay. Oops, I forgot a 9. And I can't type. Oops. I think I ended up there. Okay, I forgot that I have some hotkeys for my number pad. And I probably totally messed up that sequence. Anyway, this is okay, that's right. It's Bodo. I can't say it, but it's Bodokundo people. Okay, this is what that DNA refers to, and we'll open up the Encyclopedia Britannica. But Bodokundo, South American Indian people who live in what is now the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais. I can't speak. They spoke the language of the Macro-G group. Their culture was similar to that of other nomadic tribes of the forests and mountains of eastern Brazil. Hunting bands of 500 to 200 members were led by men considered most powerful. I think there's an ad playing in the background. Stop ruining my video! Anyway, I know they did a lot of body modification. A few remaining Bodokundo are descendants of those who took agriculture and came to terms with the colonial advance. So basically that means once South America was pretty much I think it was overtaken by, I don't have it. I was looking up some of how, YouTube it, there's a lot of, it's like, empires through history or whatever. Whenever Spain starts to take over that part of South America, so basically that's probably where I have somebody who came from the Spanish, like that whole Portugal area from Spain, came over, ended up marrying or having children with one of these tribe members, and then they moved up north or became what would later on be like Native Americans living in probably the southern half of the U.S. And you can sort of like take that for what it's worth also. And then let me see if I can do And hopefully it didn't mess up my, I don't think it did. Good. We're still on. Looks like you're still seeing what I'm seeing. So it's just a different type of Polynesian DNA, similar to that, based in Brazil. So let me get back here. Okay, and the last one I wanted to talk about was this Kennewick, USA. So I know it's 70. Try not to use my number pad, mess that up again. So, DNA confirms the Kennewick man's genetic ties to Native Americans. There was some discrepancy when the skeleton was found. It's considered to be an 8,500-year-old skeleton found in Washington State. And it is basically it's just a particular type of Native American DNA. I'd kind of have to go through some of this some more, and once I find out my haplogroups for maternal and paternal, this will be a little bit more helpful also. But anyway, I just wanted to sort of touch on that, and I have a lot of things I didn't know, and way more than Ancestry says, okay? Even though I probably look like the most European person ever, I do have tiny traces of other things, and I thought that was really cool. And I'm going to go through my and find out okay, where is height represented in the genomes, and then okay, maybe I can go through and isolate what country I get my height from, because on my mom's side I have a lot of people who are always like, you are so tall, you're an Amazon woman. Okay, I'm only 5'6", and they just happen to be I don't know, between 4 foot 11 3/4 inches to I have one cousin who swears that, and then maybe up to 5'4" or 5'2", and so to them they think I'm like this giant, okay? Or maybe I'll go through and look and see, okay, where's some of my hair color represented? Okay, it comes from, and that I know it probably comes from the European side, or especially a lot of that Scandinavian colder climates, blonde hair, Dutchy sort of thing. Anyway, there's not really a whole lot else to talk about on this video. It's really exciting, and I kind of hope that you enjoyed learning about it with me. And I tried to give you just sort of a really quick run through of what I've been researching the last couple days, because it would have been a total a way worse struggle showing it to you guys as I was learning it, because it was just a couple hours. I was like, I don't even understand. What do you mean? What do you mean I have Native American? I actually got the Native American? Okay. So anyway, yes, please let me know if you did GEDmatch, or if you're going to do GEDmatch, or you're going to take a DNA test, because it would be really great to see some of this. Please let me know if you're going to plan on doing a health screening, because later on I'm hoping I can do a health screening too. And I guess the only thing left I have to say is I'm still working on the family tree. It's sort of smoothed out on the paternal line so far. I have it right where it needs to be. There's only one sort of kink in it, and I'm working with some family members now to either straighten it out to be either as good as it's going to be, or as good as, making it, I guess, accurate, okay? So it's going to be one of those things where either we'll never know, or we're only going to get so close, or we're going to eventually find out. I don't know which it's going to be, so I guess stay tuned until the next one. Hopefully it won't be so long between uploads. But anyway, yep, that's it. That's the DNA. See you guys next time.